Event 1 was a Polish procession in Gorzów. The big three, Golob, Hampel and Holter, led them to a record 68-point haul. The champions straight through to the final. Confirmation of Poland's victory in event number 1, so Denmark and Russia through to Thursday's race-off in Vojens, with Poland straight through as defending champions to tonight's final here in Denmark. From Gorzów in Poland to Kingsland in Great Britain, event 2 was a much closer affair, with Great Britain and Australia battling to win the meeting. Sweden were always a danger on a track that provided high-speed thrills and spills throughout. Without World Cup legends Crump and Adams, the young Aussies almost did enough, but it was left to the veterans, Harris and Nichols, to see the Brits through to their first final in 3 years. So Great Britain winning event number 2, Australia and Sweden through to the race-off in Vojens. And there we see the lineup for the race-off: Denmark, Russia, Australia and Sweden, with Poland and Great Britain straight through to the final. So to Vojens in Denmark, and one of the year's most dramatic and eventful nights, with the Danes roared on by a big crowd. Sweden made the best start with 4 wins in the first 5 heats to take control, but Denmark on home soil, led by the impressive Hans Andersen, clawed their way back. Australians' challenge ended with Chris Holder's joker ride, failed to gain a single point. They never recovered without the inspirational Crump and Adams, absent from this year's event. With Russia struggling to win races, it became a shootout between Denmark and Sweden to win the meeting and score a psychological edge. And in the end, after a late Swedish charge, Andersen led the 13 times world champions into today's final. They won the World Cup on this track 2 years ago. They'll be a big threat tonight on a circuit they know so well. So there is Denmark's victory, Sweden in second, and Australia and Russia's World Cup's hopes ended here in the race-off at Vojens. The lineup then tonight: Poland, Great Britain, Denmark and Sweden, the 4 nations bidding to be the Speedway World Champions. And that's what they're all riding for tonight, the Ovi Funding Trophy. And which of those 4 captains will lift the trophy after 25 heats here in Vojens tonight? That's where we are, the Vojens Speedway Centre here in Denmark, designed and opened by the 3 times world champion Ollie Olsen in 1975. The 3rd time a World Cup final has been held on this track. They've also hosted 9 Grand Prix, and that is what it's all about tonight. It's wet and it's rainy, but it's all about the Ovi Funding Trophy as we see the Swedish team take to the track for the first time tonight. Twice World Cup winners in 2003 and 2004. And they've won a medal in 8 of the last 9 years, and they were second in the race-off on Thursday. Freddie Lindgren rides at 1, Jonas Davidsson at 2, Antonio Lindback at 3. At number 4 is the captain Magnus Zetterström, and at number 5 the GP star Andreas Jonsson. And this is Zetterström.
You know, it's the final and it should be tough, but you know, we're up for it, and the team seems to be very hungry for a medal. So yeah, we're ready.
So that's Magnus Zetterström, the captain of the Swedish team. The defending world champions will ride in blue tonight. They are Poland. They scored a record 68 points with 19 heat wins in Gorzów on Sunday, but they've never won a Speedway World Cup outside of Poland. Can they do it tonight in Denmark on a track that might not suit them too well? This is the Polish team tonight. Rune Holter at number 1, and number 2 is the World Championship leader Jarek Hampel. At 3, the inspirational Thomas Golob. Adrian Majinski rides at 4. Janusz Kolodze at number 5, and this is Thomas Golob.
I think it's the same result in the last meeting in the Gorzów, in the 68 points. I think tonight 70 points. You must do it together, and the team, I think, is win today.
70 points is the target for the defending world champions Poland tonight. That's the Great Britain team. They ride in yellow, their first final for 3 years. It's 21 years since they last won the Speedway World Cup, and they warmed up with victory at King's Lynn in event number 2 on Monday. And this is the Great Britain team tonight. Riding at number 1 is Chris Harris. At number 2, the teenager Ty Wolfenden. At 3 is Simon Stead. At number 4, Scott Nichols, top scorer at King's Lynn. And at number 5 is Lee Richardson. The captain is Chris Harris.
I've gone at number 1 and to go out in heat 1 to hopefully get a good start. So that's what we're going to do. And yeah, it's only a number on your back, so it's just really just go out there, and each rider needs to know the job they've got to do, and that's to win races. That's
Chris Harris. And these are the hosts, the 13 times World Speedway champions, and the nation that won the World Cup the last time it was competed here at Vojens a couple of years ago. They qualified by winning the race-off on Thursday. They've got the home track advantage, And they've got the supporters to cheer them on here at Voyens tonight. This is the way the Danes line up. At number 1 is Kenneth Bier. And number 2 is Nikolai Klint. Riding at 3 for Denmark tonight, Niels Christian Iversen. At 4 is Bjarne Pedersen. And at number 5 is their captain, Hans Andersen.
It's a final and it's going to be very tough, but you know, we intend to go out and perform. And with the backing of our home fans, you know, we really want to go for it.
So 4 nations, 25 pulsating heats of speedway in the rain and drizzle here at the Voyens Speedway Centre in Denmark on a night when one of these 5-man teams will be crowned as the World Speedway Champion. Steve Johnston, the former World Cup rider, is alongside me here for the World Cup final in Voyens. And Steve, before we get the national anthem here, we're really looking forward to this one. How big a role might the conditions play?
It'll play a big role. You know, I said before this World Cup started that I thought Poland were going to be the strongest team to me, and this is really going to even things out now with the weather conditions and the way this track rides.
There we see the pensive look on the face of Andreas Jonsson. He could be a key man for Sweden tonight. Just a word on the track as well, which Steve will talk to us about before heat number 1. It's very, very hard, and there's not an awful lot of dirt down there. We've seen the riders walking around the track, kicking their toes into the surface, and we've not seen an awful lot of dirt coming off. So it might be a night for fast starts, certainly going to be a night of competitive speedway. And after 25 heats, which one of these 4 nations will leave this track with the Ovi Funding Trophy? Only Great Britain of the 4 nations have failed to win this event under the current format. And we are going to start off here in Voyens tonight with the Danish national anthem.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the Danish national anthem.
Big night for those Danish riders. Will they be lifted by the fact they've got this big crowd behind them? Or might they, Steve Johnston, just feel a little bit of pressure on home soil on a big night like this?
The pressure's definitely on them. You know, there's a big crowd here. They all expect them to do well on this track. As you said, last time it was held here 2 years ago, they won here. So they're expecting big things from the Danes.
This is the way it all lines up tonight, with Sweden in the red helmet, Poland in the blue helmet, Denmark in white, and Great Britain in yellow. They will keep on those helmet colours right the way through the 25 heats. Remember, there is the joker option for the team managers tonight. So Petter Jansen of Sweden, Marek Cieslak of Poland, Jan Steckman of Denmark, and Rob Lyon of Great Britain all might have a key role to play in this meeting. If you are 6 points behind or more, you can play the joker and ride for double points. That's the format of the Speedway World Cup. And these are the first 5 heats that we've got for you here in Voyens tonight for this Speedway World Cup final. Rune Holte for Poland in Heat 1. Kenneth Bier rides for Denmark. Freddie Lindgren goes for Sweden. And Chris Harris, impressive at Kings Lynn, rides for Great Britain. In Heat 2, it's Jonas Davidsson for the Swedes. Jarek Hampel, the World Championship leader for Poland. Nikolai Klint for Denmark. And another youngster, Ty Woofenden, for Great Britain. Heat 3 sees Antonio Lindback on track for the first time, with Niels Christian Iversen, Simon Stead and Thomas Golob, who we're all looking forward to seeing tonight. Heat 4, Adrian Majinski, the fast-starting Bjarne Pedersen, Scott Nichols, impressive at Kings Lynn with a top score for Great Britain, and the Swedish captain Magnus Zetterström. In Heat number 5, Lee Richardson for Great Britain, Hans Andersen, the Danish captain, Andreas Jonsson, a Grand Prix winner on this circuit, and Janis Kolodze. They are the first 5 racers here of the Speedway World Cup in 2010. Steve Johnston's alongside me to provide the expert analysis. Steve, we've talked a lot about this meeting in the build-up. A lot of discussion in and around the pits as to who might win it. Poles were supremely impressive in event number 1 with 68 points in Gorzów. Great Britain showed their fighting spirit at King's Lynn in event number 2. And then we saw the Danes and the Swedes very comfortable on this circuit for the race-off on Thursday. How do you see this meeting panning out tonight?
Well, as I said earlier on, before we even got to this final, I thought the Poles were the out-and-out favourites for me. The way the track is now that I've seen it here today, we've had a little bit of rain, it's going to be a real leveller and it's going to bring it back. I don't think the Poles are, well, to me, they're not as favourable as they would have been. Also, it can work, as it has in the past, that when you come to the race-off and you don't go straight through to the final, it's great practice 2 days before the final.
Now we see lots and lots of umbrellas all around this Voyens Speedway Centre here on a rainy night in Denmark. How big a factor might the rain be as this night goes on? It's been raining now on and off for about 2 hours or so, so there's a fair sprinkling of water on the circuit already. How big a concern will the conditions be tonight as we see just how the spectators have had to wrap themselves up to guard against the conditions?
It'll be a big concern because, at this level, they're all world-class riders. And as you mentioned earlier, I think we see it a lot in Speedway that the starts are critical, but so much more when it's like this. I mean, Gate 4 can be a real graveyard here. The only way I can see Gate 4 working early on is, as we saw before this meeting started, they had the track sheeted over to try and protect it from any rain that we had. Sometimes the water comes in off the fence and just gets under the cover up against the fence off Gate 4, and that can be, to an advantage. It can put a bit of moisture into the dirt and give you a bit of a launch off Gate 4, but other than that, from here, it's a long, long way to the first bend.
Well, Sweden wear the red helmet tonight. They won the World Cup in 2003 and 2004. They've got a fantastic record in this competition. Only once in 9 years have they failed to win a medal, and significantly, maybe, they won here in Voyens back in 2003, so they know they go well on this circuit. Poland are the 3-time World Cup winners in the current format, but they've never won the trophy outside of Poland. How significant might that be as the night goes on? Denmark, twice world champions under this format and 13 times winners in total. They're in the white helmet colours tonight. They won in Voyens in 2008. Then we have Great Britain. The last time they won the Speedway World Cup was on that tragic day at Odsel in 1989, the day that Erik Gundersen's career was tragically cut short. It's 21 years since Great Britain won the World Cup in Speedway, and they've got to be the big underdogs, haven't they, GP, tonight?
Yeah, definitely, but it's all to race for them, It's they come here as the underdogs, but they well and truly deserve to go through on Monday night. I mean, what a great event, and, they really fought it out with Australia all the way, but they're here, they well deserve to be here, and it's as we start here for the first race, everyone's up for grabs.
It's the 7th Speedway World Cup event here tonight, the 3rd final that's ever been held at Voyens, and every rider in the field has ridden in at least one Grand Prix, 755 GP appearances among the 20 riders taking part in this Speedway World Cup final tonight. 7 GP winners in the meeting, including Kenneth Bier, Rune Holter and Chris Harris, who all go in heat number 1. Thomas Golob, with 16 GP wins, is the most decorated rider individually in this World Cup final. Heat number 1 then, the riders at tapes, all the nerves and all the tension inside this Voyens Speedway Centre here in Denmark for heat number 1 of the Speedway World Cup final, as we see the rider in red, Freddie Lindgren, with a bit of gardening at the start. There's Bjarne Pedersen and Niels Christian Iversen. Who's going to be the key man for the respective nations tonight? Who's going to be the hero and who's going to be the villain? This is the lineup then for heat number 1. On the inside, in blue for Poland is Rune Holter. Off Gate 2 in white for Denmark is Kenneth Bier. Gate 3 in red for Sweden is Freddie Lindgren. And on the outside in yellow, with an awfully long way to go to that first corner, is Chris Harris of Great Britain.
Yeah, like I said, 4 can be, if you watch Chris here, I'll be very surprised if he doesn't go right up against the fence, as he has done. Look as he goes into the start. He's going up to try and get that little bit of wet track, or the track that's got a bit of moisture in it, to launch him out of Gate 4.
The referee tonight is Craig Ackroyd. He refereed the race-off here in Voyens on Thursday. As we get ready for heat number 1, the tapes rise, and it's a fantastic start off the inside from the rider in blue, Rune Holter, and Poland lead out of the first corner. Second in red on the inside for Sweden is Freddie Lindgren, and a big charge on the outside by Kenneth Bier in white for the Danes, and Bier might just have got his nose in front. He's certainly going to be wheel to wheel with Lindgren as they go down the back straight. Chris Harris in yellow was tailed off at the back. He's now battling with Kenneth Pierre for that third place. But Rune Holter, Steve Johnston, is away and clear.
So critical to hold the inside line. Look at Freddie Lindgren looking up the inside here. Rune Holter just drifts off that line and makes a little mistake in these damp conditions. Freddie Lindgren's going to be up the inside of him. It's so much you don't even want to move off. Look at him going into the bend here. I mean, his front wheel is actually over the curve going into the bend.
14 points for Rune Holter in event number 1 of the day. The Poles racked up those 68 record points in the Speedway World Cup, and Holter leads in the final lap with Freddie Lindgren second, Chris Harris third, and surprisingly Denmark and Kenneth Pierre tailed off at the back. The Poles are defending champions. They're the pre-meeting favourites, and they've won heat number 1 impressively with Rune Holter. And significantly, as Steve Johnston mentioned there, the inside gate, heat number 1, gave the advantage to Poland. There's confirmation of Rune Holter's win. The Polish flags wave early on after one race of the Speedway World Cup, and the big guns of Poland flexing their muscles early on. This is the result then: 3 points for Rune Holter in red, 2 points for Freddie Lindgren for Sweden. Chris Harris in the yellow helmet got a point, nothing for Kenneth Pierre. So the early lead after one race of the Speedway World Cup final is with Poland, the defending champions, the 3 times World Cup winners, as we see the impressive Rune Holter make his way back into the Poland pits, where no doubt he'll pass on a bit of advice to his teammates and just offer that little bit of experience that he's just got.
Yeah, well, you watch this here. I mean, Rune Holter made a great start off the inside, as we saw. Freddie Lindgren switches back and actually passed Kenneth Pierre there on the first bend. Chris Harris is holding it up the inside as well. You know, he wasn't going to drift off the line there. But also, I found it, see there, Freddie Lindgren do the cutback and come straight up. I mean, his front wheel was right over the inside curve. He held it very tight. And to me, Freddie Lindgren looked really, really fast. He actually looked like he had the pace on Rune Holter, but it's just so hard to pass at the moment.
There we see the impressive, smooth style of the Grand Prix star Rune Holter, the winner of heat number 1. And that has to be a concern to the rest when you think that Poland won 19 heats in Gorzów in event number 1 as they racked up 68 points. It'll be a concern for Denmark as well. Kenneth Pierre knows this track very well. He scored a 21-point maximum in the Speedway World Cup on this circuit last year, and he was tailed off at the back.
Yeah, well, he actually, after he went out of the start, he drifted off the inside line that we're talking about in the first bend, and it allowed Freddie Lindgren to go straight past him, and then Chris Harris went up the inside of him. So I don't know if he's got some bike problems or if he was just riding in the wrong place in the track. It'd be interesting to see if he makes a bike change after that first ride.
Well, Denmark didn't start the race off particularly well. Sweden won 4 of the first 5 heats, but they regrouped and came back strongly. And after running a last in the first race, they're going to have to regroup very early in this Speedway World Cup final as we get ready for heat number 2. And this is the lineup for you. On the inside in red, Jonas Davidsson for Sweden. In blue off gate 2 is the World Championship leader Jarek Hampel, top of the GP standings. Nikolai Klint in white off gate 3, and another outside gate for Great Britain, this time Ty Woofenden in yellow, who will have a similar problem to Chris Harris in the first race as we look at some of the mechanics looking on from the viewing area here at Voyens. A lot of discussion already going on amongst the British ranks with Simon Stead with his helmet ready for heat number 3, which is where he rides for the first time. Before that, though, heat number 2, and the tapes rise, and it's a fantastic start by Jonas Davidsson in the red helmet for Sweden, who's away and clear coming out of the first bend. Woofenden has a bit of a nibble up the inside of the Polish rider Jarek Hampel, and just tailed off at the back now is Woofenden, because flying through on the inside comes Nikolai Klint. Leading for the Swedes at the moment is Davidsson. Klint in second, third in white for Denmark is Klint, and tailed off at the back is Ty Woofenden for GP. Sweden now with a fantastic start through Davidsson, and it's away and clear, Steve, out of the first bend.
Yeah, Jonas Davidsson looking fast as well. I mean, I thought he was quite impressive on Monday night. Definitely held his own at this level, and he's got onto it now. I mean, as we know, Jarek Hampel, look at this race we've got at the back. Ty Woofenden up the inside there. He wasn't going to give an inch.
Lap to go. Davidsson leads, Hampel second, Woofenden third. And a bit of a problem at the back for Nikolai Klint, but here comes Sweden around the final bend. They're going to notch their first win of the night through Jonas Davidsson, chased home by Jarek Hampel. Another point for Great Britain in third in Ty Woofenden, and another last place finish for the Danes, Nikolai Klint, who made a bit of a mess of lap number 3. But it's the Swedish flags we see flying now. Hot start in the race off, where they won 4 of the first 5 races, and they're off the mark here in race number 2 with the race winner that you see there, Jonas Davidsson. Here's confirmation of that Davidson with a win, 3 points for Sweden, 2 points for Poland, a point for Great Britain, and another last place finish for Denmark. So Sweden and Poland locked together now on 5 points, couple of points for the Brits, and 0 so far after 2 races for Denmark, Jono.
Yeah, very disappointing. They'll be in there as a team now, passing on information to each other, because they really need to pull their finger out from here, because if they let it go for too far as the other teams race away, it's very hard to make it back.
Here we see it, Steve, from the start. Now, fantastic work from the gate by Jonas Davidson.
Straight off gate 1 again. I mean, as we can see so far in the early heats. Look at that there. It was a good move there by Ty. He tried to come up the inside of Hampel. Then we saw Nikolai Klint go up the inside of Ty. We've also seen the racing line now. I mean, look at this out of the start, really good. Ty cuts back here, does the right thing, nearly runs into Hampel here. Look at this, nearly collected each other. That allows Nikolai Klint up the inside. Then this was a good manoeuvre by Ty, very hard. I mean, his dirt deflector actually touched Nikolai Klint's leg going into that bend.
No love lost between the two riders who are teammates in the Elite League in Great Britain. Both of them ride for Wolverhampton. They were champions last season, and he really did force his way through there on the inside, did Ty Woofenden for Great Britain. Now Thomas Gollop's out in heat number 3, and he's changed his bike already. Hopped on the first one, just about made it through the pits gate, didn't like it, jumped on his spare one, so already a little switch there by Thomas Gollop, who does like to tinker.
He is a classic for that. He works so hard in his own machinery. He's always tinkering down in the pits, like you say. And I've seen him go through a Grand Prix meeting and qualify for a final and actually swap bikes before he goes up to the tapes for a final. So he's very clever about what works underneath him. You know, he would have done a practice start and thought, no, he'll change bikes.
This is heat 3 then, with Gollop on track for the first time. Lindback's in red off the inside for Sweden. Then Niels Christian Iversen. Denmark still pointless there in white. Simon Stead in yellow off gate 3. And it'll be interesting to see whether Thomas Gollop can make the outside gate work. Chris Harris and Ty Woofenden have found it difficult from there, as we see Lee Richardson due out in a couple of races' time.
Well, you know, if you were going to bet money on it, I'd say if anyone's going to do it at the moment this early on, Thomas is the sort of guy that can work the bike all the way to the first bend, and he's a very determined character.
Well, he's the all-time leading scorer in the Speedway World Cup with 291 points, but in the blue helmet colour, he's got to come right from the outside gate, gate 4. This is heat 3, and the tapes didn't go. Hello, mate. Well, we do apologise for that because we've just had a power cut in the commentary area, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, Steve Johnston, but the tapes nearest to us didn't rise on that side, hence why Thomas Gollop got himself tangled up in the tapes. At that precise moment, all the power in the commentary position went off as well. Here we see it again, look, watch the tapes on the near side where Thomas Gollop is. They don't actually go up, and I think there was a power cut actually on this side of the stadium because the digital clock that counts down the 2-minute warning never actually altered. That was ticking down perfectly well, but the power on this side of the stadium didn't seem to work, and as we see Golob get tangled up in the tape.
Yeah, that was nothing to do with Golob at all, was it? He hadn't even moved and the tapes just didn't go up for him. The other side went. He obviously saw the movement in the tape and let his clutch go, but his side of the tapes hadn't gone up and he was caught in it. So, yeah, let's hope we don't have too much of that.
I think we might have 1 or 2 water in the works. It is quite drizzly here in Voyens. We do apologise for that. If you are enjoying our coverage of the 2010 Speedway World Cup final, just to recap while you were away, you missed absolutely nothing. Sweden 5 points, Poland 5 points, Great Britain 2 points, and Denmark yet to score. The Danish flags are still waving all around the arena. A fantastic crowd inside this Voyens Speedway Centre as we see the riders coming to tapes for heat number 3, the rerun of heat number 3, after that extremely unsatisfactory start where Thomas Golob on the outside in the blue helmet got caught up in the tapes. And there we see the Swedish team manager, Petter Jansson. He'll be pretty happy with the start that his nation have made with 5 points and winning the 2nd place in the opening couple of races. And there is the Swedish rider out for heat number 2. It's Antonio Lindback off the inside. He'll be back here next month for the Grand Prix Challenge. And off that favoured inside gate, he'll be looking to replicate what Jonas Davidsson did in heat number 2. This is the lineup then for the restart of heat 3. Lindback on the inside in red, Iversen white in gate 2 for the Danes, Stead in yellow for Great Britain in the yellow helmet, and Thomas Golob on the outside in the blue helmet, hoping that the tapes go up nice and smooth this time and he can charge from the tapes and see if he can make the outside gate work. But you've got to look at Lindback, haven't you, in the red helmet off the inside, as we see the former World Speedway champion Erik Gundersen alongside the Denmark team manager Jan Stekman in the pits.
Yeah, one's definitely worked, as we've seen, for the first 2 races, and Antonio Lindback needs to make the most of that at the moment, because it might not still work well towards the end of the meeting.
The rain is a little bit heavier now, probably as heavy as we've seen it throughout the afternoon here in Voyens. Here's heat number 3 then, and again the tapes don't work properly, and this time Golob. Okay. Here we see a replay again of heat number 3. Again, there's a problem with the tapes on the near side, and again, we apologise for another power cut here in the rain in Voyens. Steve Johnston, you're not happy with this because they didn't do a test run on the tapes, did they?
Well, I can see that Thomas Golob is getting pretty frustrated, and I can't blame him. He's trying to get out there and get into it, and it's not, you know, I'm sure this is just a technical problem, but they replaced the tapes after the first ones were broken, and they didn't even, you know, I know they're trying to rush it through and get back in and keep this meeting rolling, but they didn't do a practice run. Now, for me, if you've just had a problem with the tapes, get the riders to sit back off the start line, get the referee to do a quick practice start, make sure they go up before you're up at the tapes and you're in race mode.
Well, Antonio Lindback has gone into his pit area. There we can see the Danish team having an impromptu meeting. That's the scores after a couple of races. 5 for Sweden, 5 for Poland, 2 for Great Britain, and nothing so far for Denmark. And with Lindback in the pits just working 1 or 2 things out, there's got to be a growing concern about the rain here in Voyens, Steve, because it's as heavy as it's been all day.
That's the other thing, you know, it's nobody's fault. You can't really help the weather, but it is coming down heavier than it has done all day.
Well, you can see there, you can see, look, Bjarne Pedersen and Hans Andersen with an umbrella above them, and you can see how hard the rain is falling, and that's not helping track conditions at all.
Well, I did say earlier to you, Darren, that I thought the rain had come, you know, since about 5 o'clock today. It was on and off just in a little bit of misty rain, but it's actually started to come down a lot stronger now.
OK, well, it's not been the best of starts for the Danish team, and their team manager Jan Stekman's in the pits with Steve Brandon.
Jan Stekman, not the start you were looking for.
No, you can say that again. There's a long way to go. The World Cup's a long meeting. It's 25 races. We've done 2, and yeah, there's a long way to go.
I know the team. You know, the team looked very good and solid as a team unit on Thursday night, and really, it's such a long way to go in the meeting. There's nothing to be beating yourselves up about yet.
No, exactly. You just you hit a nail on the head there. Yeah, we just got to settle down and get on with it. The weather's, you know, the same for everybody. You know, it's raining quite hard now, but yeah, we'll fall back and regroup.
Never rains at Voyens, does it?
Hardly ever.
All right, I'll let you get back to it. Thanks.
That's Jan Stekman, the Danish team manager. The one thing he will be acutely aware of, Steve, is during the race-off on Thursday, after the first group of 5 races, they were 7 points behind Sweden. They gradually grew into the meeting. There we can see how heavy the rain is. More umbrellas have gone up around Voyens. And there we see one or two puddles now starting to form on the track. Let's have a chat with Freddie Lindgren, the Swedish rider. He's with Steve Brandon.
Freddie, it looks like the weather's going to make it interesting out there tonight.
Looks like that way. It started to rain a bit more heavily now, so obviously that's going to change the track a little bit. I don't know what they're going to do now with the decision to wait a little bit or what they're going to do.
Solid start for your team, sort of neck and neck with Poland, and people are talking about you guys being sort of the outside favourites tonight.
I hope so. I think we had a pretty good race off, and every guys in the team feel good, and Poland obviously is the favourites beforehand, but I think we have a good chance.
Well done, thanks.
Thank you.
Steve, just talk to us about this track now, because it's not got an awful lot of dirt on it to start with. It looked pretty hard to start with. There's a worry, isn't there, that if you get too much water on a track like this, it become like a skating rink?
100%. What you find is tracks that have a fair bit of dirt on it and a good surface, it will actually soak a bit of the dirt up, and you can put a bit of new material over the top and try and get rid of the damp. But if you imagine like you're going onto a bitumen road, you know, when you're driving on the tarmac, when it rains, it's obviously slippery, and when the track's as hard as what it is here, and there's water sitting on top, as you go into the bend, not only does the back wheel come around more than you really want it to, but your front wheel starts to slide. I mean, the front tyre on these things is not much wider than a decent mountain bike front tyre, and they can break away from you so easy in the wet.
Well, it's pretty dark overhead. You could see all of the umbrellas that were being held up by the supporters here in Voyens. It must be a nightmare for the riders as well, because you get yourself keyed up for the meeting, you're ready to go, you get a couple of false starts to a race, it pushes back your time on track, and there's a bit of an issue we can see down there in the pits with Rune Holter's wrist, I think it is. They're just manipulating just below the thumb. There's Antonio Lindback. He's due out on track for heat number 3, but he's got to wait for the OK to come back on track while they work on the tapes here that were absolutely blown apart on the second rerun of heat number 3. They're still working on them. They're still yet to test them as well, as we see just how dark and cloudy it is over this Voyens Speedway Centre track with the floodlights on, the rain coming down. At least they've got a bit of shelter on the far side. And there we see that it's getting extremely wet here at Voyens. Anyway, let's get down to the pits and get a bit more reaction, this time from the Polish team. Rune Holter's with Steve Brandon.
Rune Holter, a great start for you in Heat 1.
Yeah, a good start from the inside, and it's hard enough to see in the rain when you're in front, and I can just imagine how it is to be behind.
And for you, we're just seeing some work on your hand or your wrist. What's the problem?
It's old injury, and it's the pain coming back when there's too much vibration on the slick tracks. But it's under control. It's not so bad.
Thanks, Rune.
That's Rune Holter, who won heat number 1 impressively for Poland, as we see the puddles starting to gather on the track here. Significantly there, Steve Johnson, he talked about the visibility for riders.
Yeah, really important what he said there, because even though you're in front, you've got the spray coming up off your own front wheel. You sort of you have tear-offs, which are like screens over the front of your goggles, and you can run out of them. So if you're in front and you're having trouble with vision, what's it like for the guys behind you? Because you're spraying up mud on them as well. So as much as the tracks are rideable sometimes, it's your vision that's the real problem.
What do you do now as a rider to try and keep your focus? It's a big meeting, you're all keyed up for it. You could potentially be the world champions at the end of the night. You've got these problems with the meeting getting going, 1 or 2 big gaps in between races. What do you do to make sure that your mind doesn't start to drift here and there?
This is where it can be really important for the team manager and the people around a team like this to, you know, talk to them and keep them going and not make them think too much about it. You know, you saw Thomas Golub then. He's a really intense character. He's very strong. The second time the tapes didn't get up, you saw him stood up and turn his head around. He's really frustrated. The guy wants to get out there and race. So it's just important to keep your head together. Like I say, if the riders are they look like they're thinking about it too heavily in the pits and they're not just ready to go out and race, the team manager then should come in and keep them positive.
Well, there's Thomas Golub trying to keep his focus, Steve. He's got the ear defenders on, and he's deep in thought there. Penny for his thoughts. You'd like to know what's going through the mind of Thomas Golub. There's Magnus Zetterström, the Swedish captain, and all the riders just sitting down in their pit bays and just trying to keep focused on the job ahead, with the rain still falling, work still being done on the tapes, which is obviously the key thing. Until they get the tapes in fully working order here, there's absolutely no point in trying to restart heat number 3. They've had a couple of goes, and they have worked, haven't they, quite successfully, the last couple of tries they've had, Steve. We can see it from our commentary position here above the start-finish line at Voyens.
Yeah, I was glad that they did a couple of tests then. Like I say, I was a bit frustrated after it didn't work the first time that they didn't give it a test, and sure, the riders are up the takes were, but they've given it 2 goes now, and yeah, they're working fine, so let's hope it stays like that.
Good crowd inside this stadium for the 2010 Speedway World Cup final. Locked at 5 points apiece at the top after 2 races, Sweden and Poland. The race winners so far, Rune Holter and Jonas Davidson. Great Britain have got a couple of points. So let's hear from the Great Britain team manager Rob Lyon with Steve.
Rob, an unnecessary early delay, kind of unsettling?
Can be, but the boys are focused. They're just, it's one of those things, you know, it's just a situation that happens sometimes in Speedway, so, but they're okay.
I think tonight's going to be about making sure that when you get the good gates, you make the most of it.
Yeah, that's right, especially now. But we've got some good gates coming up soon in the next session, so yeah, they'll be going for it.
And a very, very, very handy battling point from Ty. How's he body-wise tonight?
Yeah, he's better. Not totally 100%, but he's a lot better. And really pleased with the first two points. They battled hard for those, so gonna keep that commitment going, and I think we'll be okay.
Thanks, Rob.
Cheers.
That's Rob Lyon, the Great Britain team manager, soaked to the skin already. They've got a couple of points off the outside gates. They've had gate 4 twice, and they've managed to pick up something, which he'll see as a positive. It's hard to get to the first corner from the outside gate in these conditions. Woofenden and Harris have got a point apiece. That might be, you know, a pretty good showing after 2 races so far for GB.
Yeah, I think you're dead right. You've got to look at the positives there. And as Rob Lyon said, they've got the good gates coming up, the favourable inside gates coming. So if they can salvage points off the outside, off the bad gates at the moment, hopefully when it turns around for them, they can make it up, because everyone's going to drop points here. I can see that, you know, the way the track is, I can't see anyone going through the card.
Well, I'm not sure whether Steve Johnston plans to become a weatherman when he finishes riding Speedway, but he's certainly calling the weather pretty well tonight. It's stopped raining now, so it is going to allow the track to dry out a little bit, but we are expecting rain showers throughout this World Cup final tonight. How good a draining track is this one here at Voyens, and does it drain any better because it's so slick, or does that make it harder to drain?
Makes it harder to drain, but the drainage here is very good on the inside. But the thing is, there's not a lot of camber on this track, and when I say camber, the banking on it. So on tracks where there's a lot of banking, when it rains, the water can run down into the drains, which are on the inside of the track and off the track. It's very flat in a lot of places here, and it just allows the water to sit on top of the hard surface and not soak through the track.
From our vantage point here, high above the start line, you can see a huge puddle that seems to start at gate number 4 and work its way towards the inside line going into turn number 1.
And that's also the racing line, so not just off gate 4, but once the guys come around after the first lap, as they're coming into gate 4, into turn 1, it's going to be so shiny and slippery.
Here's a reminder of the lineup then. Limback on the inside, Everson off gate 2, Stead off gate 3, and Golob, who's been tangled in the tapes on both attempts to start heat number 3. He's on the outside gate. We see the Swedish team manager Peter Jansson looking focused and concentrating on the job ahead. His team have made a decent start to this World Cup final. A second in heat number 1 for Freddie Lindgren and a win in heat number 2 for Jonas Davidson. They're level on 5 points with the Poles. And Denmark yet to score, the host nation. They're feeling a bit of pressure in front of their own crowd. Great Britain have got a couple of points, a point for Harris and a point for Woofenden off the difficult outside gate. I think we're all interested to see just how Thomas Golob can get away from the start from this outside gate, which is now very, very wet after the rain. So for the 3rd time of asking, we will try and run heat number 3 here in Voyens. Tapes rise this time, and a lightning start off the inside from Lindback, and Golob has been left tailed off at the back. Through on the inside in the yellow helmet comes at Simon Stead for Great Britain to apply the pressure on the race leader Lindback. 3rd place for Denmark is Niels Christian Everson, and filled in, caked in mud, tailed off at the back, Thomas Golob.
Oh, we've got here Lindback's out in front there, but Simon Stead isn't giving up a bit. He's really having a go. He looks fast to me, and he's really going to have a go there for Antonio Lindback.
Thomas Golob is a mile behind. A little bit of a mistake by Lindback. There's pressure up the inside of Stead by Everson. Leading though for Sweden, Lindback. 2nd place for Great Britain in yellow, Simon Stead. 3rd for the Danes in white is Niels Christian Everson, and tailed off a long way behind is Thomas Golob, the Polish captain. Around comes Lindback to start the final lap. Stead pretty comfortable in 2nd place, Everson 3rd. Thomas Golob is completely full of shale, a mile behind the rest of them, and looking a pretty sorry sight at the moment is Thomas Golob. Here comes Lindback. Second successive heat win for the Swedes, who have started well. Stead in second for Great Britain. Iversen third for Denmark, their first point of the night. And Thomas Golob, caked in shale, wet through, and looking pretty dejected at the back. There's the winner, Antonio Lindback. There was no stopping him once he got away from the start. Second successive heat win for Sweden, who have started well in the final, just like they started strongly in the race-off here at Voyens on Thursday. And Lindback was impressive there in heat number 3. This is the result. Lindback won it. Simon Stead in second, 2 points for Great Britain, a point, the first of the afternoon for Niels Christian Iversen. And how often do you see Thomas Golob with 0 points? All of that means that Sweden now have a 3-point lead over Poland. Great Britain have closed in on the defending champions, and Denmark are finally, Jono, off the mark with a point. Lindback very impressive, but that's how hard it was off gate 4 for Thomas Golob. Lindback just talking to his engine tuner Brian Anderson, a former Grand Prix winner himself, and a Danish international of years gone by in the Swedish pits. Here's the start.
Well, when the great man Thomas Golob himself can't do anything off gate 4, it just shows how difficult it is. Look at this here with Simon Stead. He almost comes up the inside of Antonio Lindback there. He then holds it very tight around the next bend. But look at this, Simon Stead, he did a very good start there, to be honest. Good first bend as well. He cuts back, comes right up the... And look at Golob there. I mean, as I said, you're pulling your tear-offs there, trying to keep clear vision, but you just run out of sight.
You can actually see there that he'd run out of tear-offs, and he was actually just wiping the mud off his goggles with his hand. You could see a big smear across the face of Golob's goggles where he had to wipe the mud away.
Did you see there, as I was talking about as well, the front wheel of Antonio Lindback sliding? You know, the back wheel's breaking away, but when it's this slippery, your front wheel starts to slide across the track.
Well, they're enjoying themselves, despite the fact that they're soaking wet through. There's Thomas Golob just showing how dirty his goggles were and just what his big problem was. While he was out there on track, he simply couldn't see, Steve.
Well, we spoke about it in the earlier race that, you know, when Jonas Davidson was saying, and also with Rune Holder, about the vision. When you're in front, it's hard to see. So what's it like when you're at the back?
Well, this is going to be heat number 4 then, with Sweden 3 points clear. On the inside in blue is Adrian Majinski for Poland. Bjarni Pedersen, the fast-starting Dane, in white off gate 2. Scott Nichols in yellow off gate 3 for Great Britain. And this time it's Magnus Zetterström, the Swedish captain, who's got to go from the outside gate number 4, which is going to be a problem while the track is in the condition it is. Gate 4 is going to be a big disadvantage. It started raining again as well here in Voyens. Poland have got the inside gate, but that's a fantastic start by Bjarni Pedersen, but he's not quite going to beat Majinski to the corner. Nichols has cut back up the inside but loses momentum, and then tearing around the outside goes Bjarni Pedersen. Denmark lead a race for the first time in the World Cup finals. Nichols trying to come around the outside of the pole, Majinski, and that's a fantastic move by Scott Nichols for Great Britain. And Zetterström, who started off the outside, finds himself in the same position that Golob was in the previous race, at the back and getting filled in.
Bjarni Pedersen knows his track very, very well, you know, a bit of track knowledge, and these conditions hasn't affected him at the moment. Scotty Nichols had to race very, very hard to get into second position there now, and I don't really think, barring a mistake from Bjarni Pedersen, that Scotty Nichols will be able to close that gap.
Well, Bjarni Pedersen is half the length of the straight in front. Scott Nichols in second for Great Britain. Third place in blue is Majinski. Under pressure now from Magnus Zetterström, who's going to go right around the outside and claim the third position. Brilliant patient ride by Magnus Zetterström. Round the final bend though comes Bjarni Pedersen for Denmark. First win of the afternoon for the 13 times world champions. Nichols second, Zetterström significantly third, and Majinski, who didn't seem to enjoy it at all, slips to the back. It's 0 points for Poland as the rain comes down even heavier here at Voyens. There's the victor, Bjarni Pedersen. That'll settle 1 or 2 Danish nerves after a couple of pointless rides and a third place for Niels Christian Iversen. That first victory will just calm them down a wee bit. There's the result. Pedersen won it. Nichols second for Great Britain. A point for Zetterström. And the first blank of the evening for the defending champions, Poland. Sweden 9, Great Britain up into second place with 6. Poland not having it their own way after 68 points in the opening round at Gorzów, and the 70 points that Golob was talking about early on seem to be an awfully long way off. And there's some advice from Bjarni Pedersen to Hans Andersen before the next one.
That's what this World Cup's all about. You get in and you tell your team about it. You've got to help each other. Week in and week out, these guys race against each other and try and beat each other. But at the moment, they've got to work together as a team. I mean, the inside there, look at this. He made a good gate off the inside. I mean, Baginski made a good one off one, and then look at that around the outside. I mean, Bjarne Pedersen, what he did, he didn't turn the bike, he didn't lock it up. Scotty Nichols having a real battle there, goes out into the dirt, trying to stay off the shiny stuff off the inside and makes a great pass. And that's exactly what Magnus Zetterstrom did. He didn't hold it down low where it was slippery and wet. He went out like Scotty Nichols did, into the loose stuff, you know, into the dirt, just got around him.
Well, let's get down to the pits and get some reaction from the GB pits. In fact, we can't get any reaction from the GB pits because Scott Nichols is just having a little bit of a chat with his teammates as we see the Danish team manager Jan Stegman down there. The rain's coming down again here, Steve, isn't it? It's going to be a problem right the way through, and the track is probably as wet right now as we've seen it all afternoon, particularly wide on turns 3 and 4. It's very, very puddly there. There we can see the track and just how wet it's becoming now.
Yeah, well, I find that, yeah, obviously that's why the boys haven't come straight back out for the next ride. I think they'll all be talking about what they're going to do, because this is as heavy as we've seen the rain so far. We're having it on and off, and I got a feeling it's going to be like this for most of the night. I think the boys out there then in that race all did quite well to not get into any trouble.
It's interesting here, you know, because Sweden have had good gates to start the meeting. They've had a couple of inside gates. There we see how heavy the rain is now. You know, I think significantly right now, the happier team manager of all the four might just be Rob Lyon of Great Britain. They've had gate 3 twice, gate 4 twice, and they've managed to pick up 6 points, which, you know, for the first set of rides off the unfavoured outside 2 gates, is a pretty decent return, you know.
With everything in consideration, and as you say, with those gates, you know, Team GB to be picking up points at the moment when they know they've got the better gates to come, yeah, they'd be definitely positive. You're dead right.
Well, the next set of 4 rides, they've got inside gates, which might help them. Then we can see a bit of confusion in the pits. The rider's not really sure whether to go out on track or not. The rider in the blue helmet that you can see there is Janis Kalodze, who was very impressive at Gorchov, along with the rest of the Poles in the first round of this Speedway World Cup this year. We are told that the meeting is going to be delayed until the rain stops, or certainly slows down a little bit, which, looking at the state of the track, Steve, I'm not surprised about. That's a good decision by the referee Craig Ackroyd and the track staff that are here today. You can see all the umbrellas up on the terraces with the supporters, and the floodlights show you just how hard the rain's coming down.
It is the right decision because, you know, you've got 4 guys going into a corner normally, you know, at 60 or 70 mile an hour, and they're inches away from each other. When the conditions are like this, I mean, I was very surprised there wasn't anything that happened in the first bend then.
There's the track, Steve. Look at the puddles on there. That's in one of the ruts on the start line, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, it's actually, as you said, this is the heaviest rain we've had at the moment. In the last sort of 5 or 10 minutes, as heavy as it's been all day.
So we are going to have a meeting delay due to the rain here in Voyens, which has been pretty on and off right the way through the afternoon. Let's get some reaction from the GB pits. Simon Stead's down there with Steve Brandon.
Simon Stead, an awesome second place in very, very difficult conditions.
Yeah, it was a little bit wet out there. Knew the start was going to be crucial, and made a good one off 3. I was quite happy, and I felt like, you know, I was hooking up pretty good on the inside, so I'm happy.
I mean, everyone's talking about sort of the meeting being very close, but maybe Poland and Sweden the favourites, but you guys aren't giving up. This is a medal chance, definitely.
Absolutely, we want to go home with a medal. Personally, I've not got one, so I'd really love to take one home.
And a new man in your pit, Ashley Holloway, we see him with Emil Seiferdin off in the Grand Prix. What does he bring to your camp?
Faster engines. He's making a real good job of them. You know, we've worked hard in the GP qualifiers, and you know, make sure we make the most of today as well, because obviously the GP challenge is here. So really working hard on it.
Yeah, I mean, you're back here just over 3 weeks, or 3 weeks today. Maybe it's a big chance for you to get a Grand Prix spot.
Yeah, big chance. You know, I'm not getting any younger now. I need to get in there, and you know, the way things are going this season, there's no reason why not. I feel like I'm riding well enough, and a bit of luck my way, we'll have a real good go at it.
You mentioned your form this year. It's been very consistent across all the leagues in the Grand Prix qualifiers. How are you? You know, how's it come about, and what are you doing differently this year, maybe?
I think I've sort of narrowed things down a bit. You know, working closely with Ashley, working closely with Peter Johns in England, and you know, not having engines from here, there, and everywhere. Working with what I've got. New mechanic in England in Delro, he's working really hard with things as well. So just a combination of things that's all bringing it together, I think.
Okay. Thanks, Simon.
Thanks.
He's had a good season, hasn't he, Simon Stead? Not just domestically, where his league form's been very good, but on the international stage, he's through to the Grand Prix Challenge, which is back here in August. We saw a battling ride from him there in his first ride, and it's nice to see Simon Stead back to form.
Yeah, it's good. You know, he's been a good rider for a long, long time, but it was, as we talk about with a lot of guys, it's consistently week in and week out getting that, and he has. And it just what he mentioned was exactly it. He stopped trying to go here, there, and everywhere, chasing. You know, sometimes with Speedway, you're always trying to chase that little bit extra. At the moment, he's got 2 engine tuners by the sounds of it. You know, he's got the mechanic that he's working well with, and it's confidence as well. While you're going well and you're on the wave of a good run and your confidence is up, you can ride well everywhere.
Tell me how significant your engine tuner is, because there are lots of very good engine tuners out there. He's just mentioned Peter Johns, who's based in the UK, Ashley Holloway, who of course has been doing Emil Sayfutinov's engines, not for a few weeks now because he's been out injured. Is that a psychological thing, or is there a significant difference between certain engine tuners in terms of how fast they can get the bike going for you?
It can be a bit of both. You know, if you've got someone out there that's winning world championships and they're on a certain engine, and you think if I've got one of them, it's going to get me going better. That can you know, work with you psychologically, but also different setups suit different riders. You know, like an engine that I could be sat on might work great for me or someone else, but it might not work for another rider because guys ride differently.
You mentioned the most often used term in Speedway in that answer, the word setup. It's how they get the bike to go forward. It's how they set the bike up to make sure they can get the best out of it. Now, what do you do to your setup on a track like this? Because the setup will be totally different today than it was yesterday for practice and what it was at the start of the meeting. What do you do now to get the bike going forward and stop it spinning all over the place?
I've ridden on this track quite a few times, and I've ridden in wet meetings like this, and I've also ridden in dry meetings, but every time the problem around Voyens is trying to get the bike to drive.
Let's get back to that in a second. Let's hear from Andreas Jonsson. He's with Steve Brandon in the pits.
Andreas, you're out next, but we don't know when yet.
No, exactly. It's still raining a lot, so hopefully the rain will stop a little bit, then we can keep going. But good start for Team Sweden.
Yeah, I mean, a great start from the boys. You've got to make the most of the good gates tonight.
Yeah, you need to be lucky as well to get the inside gates in the beginning when the track is like that. It's definitely a big advantage. So I'm going from gate 3 now, but I'm just going to try to do everything I can to hit the head.
How hard is it for riders to keep focused when there's a delay like this? How hard is it to keep focused when there's a delay like this?
Of course, it's tiring when you have to wait all the time, but we have to try to not lose the focus. So just have to try to stay focused and speak to each other and be focused.
I think we'll let Thomas keep warming his bike up. Thanks, AJ.
Yeah, thank you.
Pretty noisy down there. That's Andreas Jonsson. Steve, get back to that point that you were making about what you do to your bike now to make sure that you can get forward and get out the starts and get it moving as quickly as it can in these kind of conditions.
Yeah, well, as I said, I've ridden on this track when it's been wet, and I've also ridden on it when it's been dry, but it is always quite slick and very important to get out of the start. Without getting too technical and going too far into it, basically you can do things like making the bike shorter. The back wheels can be moved forward or to the rear of the bike, and the further forward you put the wheel, the more drive you generally get to get you out of the start. I'd have my wheel very far up the front. I'd kill the engine off a little bit by running the ignition timing down. Thus, you know, you're not having so much power. When you go into the bigger tracks, you're trying to get more power out of it on the grippy tracks. On these places, you want less power for the back wheel to stop spinning and drive you forward.
Well, you can see why the meeting's been delayed. You can see the rain teeming down here at Voyens. You can see the problems because there's a lot of surface water on the track now, and with all of those spectators huddled underneath their umbrellas, I think we've got quite a delay here because not only have we got to wait for the rain to stop, we've also got to wait for the track to drain a bit. Otherwise, it's going to be a completely farcical situation. Bjarne Pedersen won his first race for Denmark tonight. Let's hear from him. He's with Steve Brandon.
Bjarne Pedersen, a very important win to get Denmark back in it.
Yeah, it was not the start we won, but it happened, and now we just need to fight back, and of course, yeah, good race win.
I mean, we always talk about the typical Voyens weather here, but it's going to be an unsettling night off and on the track.
Yeah, it's very hard out there now. It's all about the start. So we do a few adjustments, try to get the bike a little bit better off the start.
So just having that practice 48 hours ago and having a proper race meeting could be vital for you in Sweden tonight?
Yeah, it can, you know, but like I say, it is a little bit gambling out there, but we do our best.
All right, thank you.
That's Bjarne Pedersen, who provided Denmark with their first heat winner of the night. Could be a big night for him because he's one of the better starters here in this World Cup final, Steve.
Yeah, definitely, and he just hit the nail right on the head, saying it's all important about getting it out of the start. And then we go, like, you hear Speedway commentators and people saying all the time about the setup, and it gets pretty boring, but it is dead right. All these guys at this level can ride the bikes. It's not a problem getting around the track and riding the bike. It's getting the bike set up to be driving forward and not going sideways and spinning all the time.
He's still trying to get the mud off Thomas Gollop after being filled in heat number 3. Just chatting to his manager down there in the Polish pits.
Another interesting thing I've seen in the past, you know, I don't know what facilities they've got here to do this, but I've seen tracks where they come on with a truck with some dirt on there, some dry dirt that they've had sheeted up. You know, if the rain stops, you can come on and put some dry dirt on top, grade the track quickly and keep on with racing. Now, like I say, I don't know what they've got available here to them at Voyens, but that's also very hard when the base is as hard as what it is, because if you put any loose dirt on the top to try and soak up the rain when and if it stops, it's got nothing to bind to. It's very slippery.
They have got the facility here to cover the track. The track's been covered all day. Unfortunately, while they got the covers on, it wasn't raining. They've taken the covers off to do the track work and get the track ready for the meeting to begin. And there we can see the puddles all over it. We can see the meeting has been delayed due to rain. No choice other than to delay the meeting, because you can't ride on the track at the moment, that's for sure. But the one thing you can't do, of course, Jono, is put the covers back on when it starts to rain. That's something you can't do. So I think we could have quite a delay here, because the rain, in my opinion, is not showing any sign of easing up. Young man.
I think the only option we've got here, we're only a couple of boxes down from the referee. If I could go up there and talk him into calling the meeting as it is, we could go and celebrate with the Swedish team.
Well, what we can actually do is go and buy a load of umbrellas and sell them on the terraces. Well, the girls have managed to keep themselves warm, if anything, and they're trying to keep the supporters entertained. It's not quite Cliff Richard at Wimbledon, but it's certainly doing the business of 1 or 2 here at Voyens.
I'd rather be hanging out with them than Cliff Richards at Wimbledon, I can give you the tip.
Do you know, I didn't expect you to say that at all.
Oof, mate, there you go, can't
there
say too much.
He's thoroughly enjoyed himself. They're not.
No, well, no, not with the way that Poland's going or the weather.
You know, if they do get this meeting back on and it's a wet track, it isn't going to favour the Poles, is it? The Danes and the Swedes all of a sudden, and the Brits maybe to a lesser extent, become big factors in this World Cup final. The Poles like it big and dry with a bit of dirt on it. They're not going to get that tonight if they get this meeting back on at all.
Well, also, I think, you know, if the referee gets in the team captains and the team managers like they do sometimes and say, boys, what do you think we're going to do? Well, straight away, I think Denmark and Poland, for one, are going to say, well, no, this is no good, we can't go on, because they'll be looking at a fresh start. They've both got off to...
You know, because we see the supporters leaving the stadium. They'll be back at 3 o'clock tomorrow for the restaging of this. We talked about the Danes hadn't made a very good start to the meeting. The Poles will be delighted to go again tomorrow. 5 points after 4 races. Majinski and Gollop didn't look happy on the track. They'll come back tomorrow re-energised, and they might be a bigger threat now on a different surface.
Yeah, definitely. The weather played a big part in how things were going here tonight. Another thing that's important is most of these guys...
Your bike set up as the meeting goes.
Yeah, I don't think the track has been damaged all that much. You know, we've had 4 heats. It hasn't chopped up an awful lot. And why it's wet as well, it won't be hard for them to regrade the track and get it flat again. So I don't think the track being damaged is a big problem. I think, as you said, the problem can be if we're going to have good weather tomorrow or not.
Steve, thanks for sticking with it tonight. Steve Johnston back with us tomorrow for the restaging of this. We're back at 3 o'clock local time tomorrow. This is the meeting as we had it tonight. Just the 4 racers. Nikolai Klimt found it hard. There's the tape problems. Had 2 of those. Had a couple of power cuts as well at Voyens in this horrible weather. Everybody's trying to keep warm as best they possibly could. There you see how difficult it was to keep control of the bikes. The Swedes had probably taken to the track better than anybody else. There we see that they were leading on 9 points, 3 clear of Great Britain. Poland on 5, the defending champions, and Denmark, who found it really hard to get started. They were at the back on 4. They'd only managed to win 1 race through Bjarne Pedersen, and it was a case of everybody trying to keep as dry as they possibly could under the umbrellas with the cagoules on, and there really was nothing they could do to the track to get it raceable. We're all back here tomorrow. We'll start from scratch. The winner of the Ovi Funden Trophy will be decided here at Voyens at 3 o'clock tomorrow. We'll see you then.